It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Live from Detroit, welcome to Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live from Schmeelk's Hotel Room. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you, talking Giants football. We will try to get to your questions early and often, so give us a call at 201-939-4513. Paul and I saw every snap at practice this week. We're getting ready for the game tomorrow night, so I'm sure you have a lot of questions of what went on out here based on what you've read out there on the interwebs. We'll be happy to add our commentary on that as well as we conclude our open here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. First preseason game, as a reminder to everybody, is at 7 p.m. on Friday night. Giants at Lions. There is still zero indication as to who the Giants are going to play. The Lions were pretty forthright that most of their starters, I imagine prominent backups even, might not play much in this game. We'll get a better idea tomorrow afternoon after our production meeting with Brian Dable with the Giants. We'll do, and stay tuned to our pregame show at 6 p.m. on Friday night, and we'll get you all locked in as to what the Giants are going to do with their starters. Mr. Dottino, it's good to see you. How are you?
Hey, you know what, John? I can't say enough about this weather in Detroit. It has been sensational. We're talking low 80s, crystal clear skies,
not that
nice
humid
breeze.
A little cloudy today, though, right?
Well, on my walk it was really clear. What do you think? Yeah, maybe a little more cloudy right now than it was earlier, but the weather has been sensational. The Giants actually did their walkthrough outside in the park behind the hotel today.
Oh, did they really?
They didn't even go into the ballroom. They were, you know what? Dable's like, let's get outside. This is great. So they went out in the park, and that's where they did some of their plays that they expect to use against the Lions tomorrow night. I just think that the one thing that I want people to keep in mind, and I'm not using this as an excuse, but it is part of the reason, okay? The Lions started their training camp a week earlier than the Giants did. And my understanding is that those extra practices absolutely put them ahead of the curve compared to where the Giants were.
How'd they start a week earlier?
I don't have the date, but I was talking to one of the coaches about it, and they made it very clear that the Lions had started practice earlier than the Giants. I don't know.
I don't know how that's possible given NFL rules.
When was their preseason opener?
Tomorrow?
Are we sure it's tomorrow?
How have they played it? The only game has been the Hall of Fame game.
What did they have? One of the coaches told me they had more practices than the Giants had, and it was by a few, and that they were much more ahead of the curve than the Giants were, and that's why there was a noticeable difference in the first practice on Tuesday. The other thing that they told me is that Dan Campbell insists on full bore in padded practices. The Giants do thud. That's a difference. They tackle. They go to the ground. They do real hits in their practice sessions during training camp. The only thing the CBA mandates is how many padded practices you can have and how they're regulated schedule-wise. They don't tell the coaches, you can't tackle, you can't go to the ground, you can only do thud. They don't tell them that. That is up to their jurisdiction or their own discretion. Apparently, the Lions do full hits.
And there are other teams. The Steelers do that. The Chiefs do that. There are other teams that do that as well.
The comment that was made to me by somebody at practice on Tuesday was, you can see how much further along the Lions are in terms of their physicality and what they're doing compared to what the Giants were doing. That does explain a little bit of that. You're not going to get that in the newspaper articles because, quite frankly, I don't think anybody knew about it. And I happen to be talking to one of the members of the coaching staff, and he goes, oh, yeah, there's a reason why they're way ahead of us right now. It's because of this.
Well, I mean, not completing open passes has nothing to do with that either.
No. Daniel Jones was erratic in day one. It was, I thought, his most sporadic practice of the entire offseason. That's not to excuse him.
Right.
But in general, in terms of some of the 11-on-11 stuff that we saw, that could have contributed, is what I was told.
Yeah, and then and that was day one where the Giants' offense did not look great. But I thought same on day 2. You watched the O-line, D-line stuff on day 1. I watched it on day 2. Giants more than hold their own, if not won a lot of those one-on-one matchups.
They won both days.
So they did well in those matchups. I mean, look, there were some matchups they won, some matchups they lost. It wasn't like universal. Like Aiden Hutchinson won some reps. Penei Sewell won reps. Like, it's not like good players are not with reps for the other team. Let's be clear about that.
Sewell had the most success for the Lions, though.
Yeah, I would say Hutchinson was a close second.
Day 1, he really did not do well.
He had 2 sacks in the team session?
No. One-on-ones.
Okay, I know. I'm just talking about in general.
Battle
between the two
Sorry.
groups.
I thought you were talking about the line drills.
But I thought the Giants up front held their own pretty well. Second day was mostly red zone stuff, and that's something the Giants work on a lot and something that they were very good at last year. And I thought they were very good. There weren't that many full field team stuff in day 2. It was mostly red zone stuff, and the Giants did really well in those drills.
Yeah. And quite frankly, in the second day of the dual session, Daniel Jones looked more like Daniel Jones has looked all off season.
Yes.
That was him.
Now, fewer downfield attempts, too.
Yes.
Unlike day 1, where they were
true.
full field stuff going downfield. Like I said, day 2 was much shorter stuff in that red zone area.
I understand Daniel was upset with himself after day 1.
Oh, you could tell in his presser even that he was annoyed with
frustrated,
how he played, 100%.
And perhaps even a little disgusted. And he let his teammates know that he had let himself down and knew that they needed to do better on Wednesday. And I think that message was well felt.
Yeah, and look, the quarterback's the leader of the team. When things go bad, it's your fault. When things go well, it's your teammates' credit. So that's how it works.
Except if you're Aaron Rodgers. Go ahead.
There are some quarterbacks where there is an exception to that rule. That is true.
Exactly.
Depending on what quarterback you're talking about. Generally speaking, that's how most quarterbacks deal with it. No argument from me. But look, I thought day 2 was better, and I think, and I said this on the show with Lance yesterday, and then you can go whatever other direction you want based on the 2 practices. We've seen these joint practices before, and you walk out, and the team looks overmatched, especially up front. That was not the case. Now, the Lions don't have the best defensive front in the league. They basically have one top pass rusher, and they don't have much else up front that's going to kill you pass rush-wise. But they have a really good offensive line, and I thought the Giants' defensive front, especially inside, more than held their own. So I think you walk out of this, coming in, I think we both thought the Lions and the Giants were in the same general tier of teams in the NFC walking into this. They won same amount of games last year. Giants just had a tie instead of a loss. That's why they finished ahead of them in the standings. So I think you're walking out of this thinking about these 2 teams like you walked in, that these 2 teams are very similar, and their records are probably going to be pretty similar when you get towards the end of the year.
John, I think the interesting part for me about the defensive line for the Giants, we know what Dexter Lawrence is. We know what Leonard Williams is. We think we know what Thibodeau and Ojulari can provide. But I still don't have a really good gauge on how much the backups are going to give this team. We think that they're going to give them enough.
Well, the problem is that Ashawn Robinson and Nacho, neither one of them practiced this week.
Correct. So we just don't know.
So, you're digging into the 5th and 6th defensive linemen at that point. So
Zimenez had some good reps this week.
Yeah, he was fine. Tom and Fox had 1 or 2 good reps.
Fox had flashed a few, but nothing dominant.
No.
Nothing dominant. And
Jihad Ward was fine, but he's not going to give you a lot of pass rush.
No, we know what he is.
Exactly.
So I'm still curious if people out there are wondering, okay, what didn't you answer with these 2 practices? I don't think we answered the depth in the front 7 yet. I don't think we've seen that answer yet. And part of the reason is, as you said, 2 of those defensive tackles are unavailable right now.
Yeah, and you know what, though? I feel like I know what Ashawn Robinson and Nacho are. They've been in the league for a long time.
I think we do.
They've done their jobs well for a long time. I think they'll be fine. I'm not worried about
I
those
suspect
2
you're
guys.
right.
The backup guys on the edge, on the other hand, that's something else. Because if Ojulari misses a significant period of time, or Thibodeau, and look, those guys probably, it's going to be a good 40 to 50 snaps, 40 snaps available at that position over the course of every game with the rest of those 2 guys.
Could be.
They're not going to play every snap. So who's going to get those other 30, 40 snaps over the course of a game? Is it Tom and Fox? Is it O'Shane Zimenez? Is it Jihad Ward? And how productive are they going to be with those snaps?
The other guy who we really don't talk about very much on this program, and we're all guilty of it, is Ryder Anderson. he hasn't been available either.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they really like him a lot, and he bulked up to, about 290 pounds this past offseason, and he has been injured, and there's no way to know right now how much of a factor he could potentially be
and
in the
rotation. And he might
rotation.
be a couple weeks, too,
I
according
know.
to Brian Dable. So.
I know. So that's what I mean, John. You're right. We have something to go off of, but until they do it here, it's not for sure.
A couple other notes I don't think I mentioned with Lance yesterday, Paul. I thought Sterling Shepard, out of all the receivers, looked the most consistent in getting separation and getting open. And a lot of Giant fans, to me, are concerned, at least on day one especially. He didn't practice on day two. It was Veterans Day. Mm-hmm. But on a day one where the offense really didn't do a whole lot, I thought Sterling Shepard was making himself available as well, if not better than anyone else. Day two, Hodgins and Slayton and Waller, and they all had moments on day two.
Right.
But I thought Sterling Shepard looked like his old self. Maybe not quite as much juice, but I think he's going to be useful this year and going to be a player that can help this team.
It certainly looks like it, John. And he's back much earlier than I think any of us anticipated. And if he can stay on the field, we have another 3-4 weeks to go. If he can stay on the field, Sterling Shepard, I think, has to be part of this 53. But we still have time. And I don't want to jinx this guy. But he looks like he is able to contribute. And that's just another one of many wide receivers in this room that are packing it like sardines because there are still too many guys out there. Crowder continues to show up pretty well. Pimpleton continues to show pretty well. It's not like these other receivers are dropping balls and not doing good things. John, they're all making the plays that are given to them. Nobody is actually fumbling away an opportunity. Somebody is going to have to beat each one of these guys out. None of them are just giving up a job.
I talked about the rookies yesterday. You can check out my 2 practice reports on Giants.com as well. One other thing I thought was interesting, just the pace. The pace of the Giants' offense, getting in and out of their huddles or running plays, was much faster than Detroit's, because the way this works, folks, and the reason you can tell is that you have the Lions offense working on one field, the Giants offense working on another, and each period's like 7-8 minutes, whatever it is, and the Giants would be done with their plays with 2 to 3 minutes left in the period, and the Lions still had like 3 plays to go. So the Giants' pace and getting plays in and running them was just at a much faster rate than the Lions, which I thought was interesting.
I think that was very obvious. There were a few moments where the Giants tried to do a little bit of a hurry up, a little bit, but for the most part, you're right. They would get in their huddle, they'd call their play, they'd get up there, boom, 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 let's just do it. The Lions seem to take forever.
A lot of huddling and all that.
Oh,
a lot
my goodness. And I don't know why. I mean, Goff is Goff. They didn't change anything, but they really seem to be taking their dilly-dallying time. And, wow. Look, I don't know, ultimately, I don't know if either coach at the end of these 2 days was totally thrilled with everything they saw.
I mean, you're never going to be totally thrilled with everything you see.
I think there was some things that both coaches were probably not thrilled with, and there were probably a few too many penalty flags. Not a ton, but a few too many.
More on day one than day two for the Giants.
Definitely.
There was a lot of holding in the secondary and DPI for, frankly, both teams in that first set.
Yes. So I think that probably, from a pet peeve perspective, was the number one pet peeve I think that Campbell and Dable probably have right now.
How about the Giants getting their hands on the football on day two? I only saw 1 interception. Pinnock said they had 2. I did not see the second one, but apparently there was supposedly a second one on day 2.
In the team?
Pinnock said the defensive came, when I did my radio interview with him, he said they came up with 2 interceptions. I only saw one of them by Green in the end zone.
I'll take a look.
I did not see a second, but I trust him. I was watching the offense more than the defense yesterday.
Okay.
And there were 3 forced fumbles over the course of practice, too, including Dame Belton. I'm sure people have seen that highlight on the Giants social media channels, just coming right up from behind David Montgomery and basically stealing the bacon and just reaching his hand in there and taking the football out and returning it the other way. So the Giants' defense, and this is something Wink Martindale has had a focus on over the course of the summer, they were taking the ball away a lot yesterday and getting their hands on the football, which is good to see.
I don't see the other pick on my notes, so
yeah, neither did I.
We'll have to take Pinnock's word for it. Regarding the Belton play, You know what I thought was very interesting about it? We've seen these scoop and score drills that the defense will run for years now. I mean, this is not something that's new to Brian Daboll. We've seen it under previous coaches. Defense gets a turnover. They always tell the guy with the ball, you're going to the house. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter, what the situation was. You get the ball in a turnover in practice, you're supposed to go to the house, and your teammates are supposed to follow you. That's just a practice habit.
That was a big Patrick Graham thing.
He started it.
Mm-hmm.
He started it. Okay, so Belton does that yesterday, and I thought it was interesting. The entire Lions offense froze. Not one guy even
chased him.
You don't even have to chase him, but could you react a little bit?
Okay, yeah, I didn't even notice that.
They were like comatose. It was like, oh, Belton stole the ball, play's over. And just like
and you wouldn't think a Dan Campbell coach team would react that way either. It's a good point. I didn't even notice that.
If I'm Dan Campbell, I'm probably a little ticked off about that.
I'm sure that was in the film session.
Because when he plays that back in the team room,
right.
Guys, what are you doing? You don't have to chase the guy down to tackle him necessarily because they were not supposed to be tackling each other in these drills. But could you at least show a little awareness?
Yeah. All right, folks, we have 3 people on the line here, so let's get to them early. I said we'll get the calls. Let's get to them. 201-939-4513. First, a reminder, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. Our most recent episode is up there. I talked to Robert Mays, who's co-host of the Athletic Football Show. I've mentioned it before. It's one of my go-to football podcasts. That, Move the Sticks, and the PFF Show. Those are my 3 different football podcasts that I'll listen to over the course of the week. He does a great job on that show. He gave us about 12 minutes. He was at one of the Detroit practices, so I talked to him on the sideline. We had a good conversation about kind of Giants big picture stuff, where they are, and what this season may look like. So check out the Giants Huddle podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, Giants.com/podcast, or find it on the Giants mobile app. And if you do subscribe to our podcast, including Big Blue Kickoff Live on Apple Podcasts, please leave that 5-star positive review for any of the podcasts you listen to. Tell us how much you like them. Send in a screenshot of it if you want on Twitter, or just do it. It certainly helps us out. All right, 201-939-4513. Hugo in New Jersey has been holding the longest. Then we'll get to Yesman and Doug. Hugo, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. Great job covering this camp and the work the Giants have been doing with the Lions. Really terrific job. I really wanted to talk about the run game. And, the unfortunate thing about the preseason and training camp up to this point is that it's all been about the passing game, and it's very difficult to understand, to evaluate what's going on in the run game. But I'm very excited about the running game for this upcoming season. One, we were actually a pretty good team running the ball last year, and I think the 5 guys in the offensive line are only going to improve and build upon that.
And Hugo, I should say, by the way, I think they actually done a pretty good job in Detroit of running the ball. We did not mention that in our conversation, especially on day 2. They popped Saquon Barkley for a long run. Eric Gray had a couple long runs over the course of the couple days.
Corbin had a nice one too.
Yeah, I thought they actually blocked up the run pretty well.
Yeah, and to be fair, these drills, even though there are some running drills and there are some handoffs in the 11-on-11s.
When you can't tackle, you can't see anything.
All right, yeah. Because they're told. They're told. You're not. In fact, there was a tackle yesterday. Did you hear the coaches screaming?
Yeah. I'll just say this.
Don't tackle. Yeah, nothing. Don't go to the ground.
And I'll just add this real quickly, and then you can continue with your point.
Yeah.
For linebackers and running backs, I can't evaluate those guys in camp practices.
Yeah.
I need to see them in games.
You've mentioned that. Yeah, you've mentioned that.
So I appreciate your concern, but the truth is there's not much we can tell you about it because it's not designed to do that.
No, I understand that. My comment was I'm basing how excited I am for our running game this season because I think the front, the 5 guys on the offensive line are going to be better and build upon last year. But I also wanted to talk about 2 other positions that are important to the run game. I'm excited about Eric Gray as sort of the back that gives you some of that dirty yardage. The kind of guy who turns a 2-yard run into a 4-yard run and a 3-yard run into a 5. That's really important. I don't know if he's going to be specifically our short yardage back or our goal line back.
No, that's Gary Brightwell, Hugo. You got the wrong guy. Gary Brightwell's the guy who's going to get that dirty yardage by plowing ahead and grinding out that extra yard or two.
He's being active on game day before he can.
Well,
okay.
That's true. That's true. But the reason I say that is because when you qualify a guy as getting dirty yardage, it's usually the guy who's going to push after contact and grind a little bit forward.
Eric Gray is more of a third down back than a short yardage back.
More of a third down back, more of a pass receiving back, and more of a one-cut slasher. He's not necessarily pushing the pile for an extra 2 or 3 yards.
I agree 100%.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I was just basing my comments on the fact that his strengths have been noted as having good vision. He's a one-cut runner. He has great contact balance. I mean, everyone
contact balance. Yes, he does have great balance. That's correct.
Yes, but you're going to need to give him a crease in order for him to get that extra yardage. Brightwell's not afraid to lower his shoulder and push you back.
And I think James Robinson can probably push the pile a little bit too.
I told you the other day, I think James Robinson has a place in this league. I don't think he's done.
No, I agree with you.
Okay. And then the other position I want to talk about is tight end. I thought Bellinger was a good blocker even as a rookie, and I would expect him to improve, especially since apparently he's bulked up. Certainly his biceps would indicate that he could, get into people and toss them around a little bit. But I wanted to talk about Waller, who has been kind of described as not a great blocker. And I wanted to dig into that a little more because the guy has the frame and the size and the work ethic. And I'm just wondering, is that something really that's on tape, or is he sort of a victim of he's such a good catch, such a good player in the passing game that, on a relative basis, he's less effective as a blocker, but still a good blocker. And I guess I'm alluding to some of the comments that Coach Andy Bishop made in the offseason. He was pretty effusive, actually, in his praise of his entire tight end group. I don't know if that's just his nature or he's really that excited, but he seemed to indicate that Waller is a good blocker. But I hear contradictory comments about that.
I mean, he's physically capable of doing it, but he's still not a guy at the point of attack I don't think you're going to run behind. I think he's more of a seal-it-off type of guy, not like a Bellinger point-of-attack type of guy.
Yeah, I think the best way to say this is there are many receiving-style tight ends who are blocking liabilities. Waller is not a liability.
Okay.
That doesn't make him a great blocker. It just says he's not a liability. He won't hurt you.
So could we expect more from Waller in the run game than, let's say, Evan Ingram? So is he a better blocker than Evan Ingram?
Yes.
I think by the time Ingram ended his career here, I think Ingram was fine. But I think they're close based on where Ingram was at the end of his Giants career.
Okay. It's just because Waller has a much better frame than Ingram for that.
No, absolutely he does, for sure.
Well, he's
he's bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanhanks for the clarifications, and once again, you guys are just doing a killer job. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Hugo. Appreciate it. And frankly, look, I'll be honest with you. Like I didn't go back and look at a ton of Darren Waller blocking film when they acquired him.
Well,
I got to be honest with you.
The cut-ups are all of him catching passes.
Well, I mean, I can find run blocking.
No,
I just
you can find them.
wasted my time doing it.
Look.
They're going to have him going out in routes.
I was just going to say, in the scope of what the Giants are going to do with him, he won't be asked to do a lot of that.
Yeah, but when they call runs and he's on the field, he'll have to do it.
And you know what? Again, he's not going to be a liability.
Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be okay.
So, I mean, I do think.
And look, all you need these tight ends to do are punish slot corners and punish linebackers. You're not asking them to block defensive ends or anything like that. So just hold your own against linebackers and punish slot corners. So that's basically what you're asking them to do.
And ultimately, I think I've said it to you, or maybe it was with Lance or somebody else on the show, John. I think we'll see certain games and certain matchups where they will use more two tight end sets.
Oh, I think that's going to be a big part of what they do this year.
But it won't be every week. It's going to be some weeks, yes. Some weeks you'll see more with the receivers. I think it's going to be a mix and match.
Let's go to Yesman in New Jersey. He's up next. Hi, Yesman. Hello? Yesman going once. Yesman going twice.
Oh,
There he
I'm
is.
here.
What's going on,
guys.
man?
Good afternoon. How are you guys?
Good.
Hi.
Well, happy obviously that we're gonna have preseason football tomorrow. But the reason I was calling you was I wanted to ask you I don't know if you guys have done this yet, but the grade that you would give on these joint practices for quarterback Jones, and I would say for our defensive line, which to me is kind of very concerning as far as us trying to get to the quarterback.
I don't do grades, so I'll leave that to Dottino.
You can't do grades
Yeah,
in a joint practice. It's just it's foolish. It's superfluous.
Look, Jones was a little scattershot on day one with his accuracy. Day two, he was better in a lot of those red zone drills. So I thought he was fine. B over the course of the 2 days, and then defensive line, like Paul and I said, against one of the best offensive line units, in the league. I thought their stars inside, Williams and Lawrence, were great. I thought their outside guys were fine against the Lions tackles. They won some, they lose some, and I think that's kind of where they're at.
The O-line, D-line drills over the course of the 2 days, the guy who gave them trouble was Penei Sewell, and that's to be expected. He's really good.
Well, in the same way, if you're the Lions, you'll say, well, the guys that really gave us trouble were Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. Well, yeah, no crap. I think those guys are going to give you trouble. They're only the two best defensive players on the team.
Yeah. Now, Hutchinson did better in the team portions than he did in the individual drills.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is there something to be said for that? I can't say. The only thing you want to say, honestly, Yasmin, for me, if I were, part of the coaching staff, I'm not grading these things. All I'm saying is there a pass-fail? Okay? Was this an abject failure for the unit? Did these guys just not get enough productivity done? Because if they didn't, that's a fail. Otherwise, it's a check box. You got some productivity done, and hopefully you got to work on some technique. That's what it's about.
So would you say then that for the day number one, it's a fail for Jones? Now, why did he fail?
He just missed some throws he usually connects on. And he said
was
that in
erratic.
his post-game presser. He said, look, there were throws down the field that I've been completing all summer, which is accurate, and he just wasn't completing them on day one. He was just inaccurate on a lot of those throws. And, look, it happens sometimes. You have bad days throwing the ball. I don't know if he was all jacked up and he was a little too excited or whatever it was. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, look, Jones, he had some accuracy issues on that first day. There's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're bound to have those, off days, I guess. But, just people overreact. You see it everywhere that they're, saying, oh, he's not that good. I'm like, that's why I wanted to know exactly from you guys, because you guys are there watching it every snap, every throw, so I wanted to see how it went. But anyways, I wanted to thank you guys for everything that you guys do.
No, thank you, Yasmin. Appreciate the call. Guys, look, it's not like Jones looked like a different player the minute a different team got on the field and he looked overmatched. He just missed throws. I mean, that happens sometimes. You have bad days at practice. Now, would you rather not have it in your first competitive practice against another team? Yeah, sure. But, it's not like his accuracy just disappeared overnight and then it was back the following day. It was fine. Though, on day two, he was very fortunate. He could have had that one pass that went right into the gut of the Lions linebacker. I don't know how that
It was a pass over the middle.
I don't know how he dropped that ball, Paul, but that would have been 60 on the way.
He did not read the defense.
Oh, no.
Never saw him. Well,
and I frankly thought the linebacker made a nice play. He anticipated the throw and jumped the route. And he could have picked it off, but he dropped it.
And that was by far Jones's worst throw of the day.
Oh, yeah, not even close. Absolutely.
Because the rest of the day he looked like Daniel Jones. So if we want to satisfy the caller a little bit, here's what I would say. If Jones had repeated day one on day two, you would scratch your head a little bit and say, geez, I wonder why that was. But because he was able to bounce back in day two, it becomes a non-issue.
100%. Doug in Glen Falls, you're up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Doug.
Hi, John. So Port looked pretty good now. He's probably going to play in the preseason game because of the injury to Neal.
Yeah, Evan Neal's not going to play in the game on Friday because he didn't practice this week. And, yeah, I'm happy you brought that up, Doug. I think I mentioned it with Lance yesterday. Matt Peart did a really nice job. He lost a couple reps to Hutchinson in the one-on-ones, but I think he won at least half of them. Mm-hmm. And, those are tough one-on-ones for offensive linemen. So that's a win in my book. Peart's, I think, really done a good job of taking advantage of his opportunity. I thought Tyree Phillips was also pretty good over the course of the week. So I think you'll probably get Phillips at left tackle, and you'll probably get Peart at right tackle to start that game on Friday night. And Look, I think both those guys, especially since Phillips has a chance to play guard a little bit too, have a real chance to make the team. So it's going to be important for those guys and those backup interior guys. I don't know who's going to be active, but the Azudus, the Lemieux, the Jack Andersons, Corey Cunningham, who can swing, tackle, and guard. It's going to be a really important couple days, a really important night for those guys to put some live-action game film on tape as these guys try to sort through those last couple offensive linemen on the roster.
Specifically about him, though, John,
Parrott
had a really sweet one-on-one defeating of Hutchinson on day one also.
No, he did. He was good.
And to be honest, his first few years here, whether it was injury or lack of production, it had been a quiet time since he got to the Giants out of UConn.
His first year, he wasn't ready to play.
Right.
He was light in the butt. He came
Which
from
they
a small,
said.
and we knew it was a project,
right?
Yeah, and
they said that,
and then he tore his ACL.
Right. So it's been a quiet start for him, and so to me, the concussion protocol for Evan Neal has increased his opportunities in better spots, and I think to this point you would have to say he's kind of answered the bell.
Yeah, and Brian Dable, will usually give the obligatory, he's done a good job when he's asked about a player at a press conference. He seemed a little bit more effusive for Parrott than his usual, he's done a good job. So I think he's been pretty happy with the job Parrott's done. And the fact that, they like rotating people, Doug, in spots here. And since Neal's gone down, Parrott's basically exclusively been with the first team.
Yeah.
So I think that's fairly telling for what they think about him.
Yeah.
So John, you think he's got a good shot with all the exposure now to be the swing tackle or not?
I think right now he's the leader in the clubhouse based on the fact he was the first one up with first-team reps when Neal went down. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he'd have to be.
Oh, okay. You guys have a good day. Keep doing the great job. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. And they've been giving Tyree Phillips more reps at guard over the course of the last couple weeks, too. So I think they like Tyree Phillips. I think he's going to find his way on the roster because if you can have two backup offensive linemen that can play tackle, it's much better than having just one.
Mm-hmm.
And if Phillips can also swing into guard, and he is listed at 2 spots on that unofficial depth chart at guard and tackle. So Lance and I talked about this yesterday, so why don't we go through it real quick. So those are the 4 tackles I'm thinking, right, that are on your roster.
The 2 guys who I think have fallen off in that tackle competition, Cunningham is below.
I don't think he's out of it yet, though.
He's not out of it, but he's below those guys.
I agree.
And Hamilton.
Yes.
He has definitely fallen way behind the other fellas. I do want to mention, though, and I put a big notation, the second one-on-one O-line, D-line drill on day number 1, Cunningham absolutely obliterated Aiden Hutchinson. And, everyone who was standing there, did whoa.
These are run drills?
No, this was a one-on-one passing drill. And Hutchinson, he ate him up. Just absolutely ate him up. And I remember I can't remember who it was now who was standing next to me. And I just turned to him and I said, that was Cunningham. It was shocking. Just ate him up. So Cunningham's going to try to make this a fight, but I think he's behind the other 2 guys.
So I think we're looking at those 4 tackles, and then the interior guy, Schmitz, and Bredeson's on the roster. He's not making it.
Yes.
And Glowinski's on the roster.
Yes.
So you're looking at those 7, right? Who are the next 2 guys then? Does Cunningham make it as another swing guy? Is it Lemieux? Is it Jack Anderson? And Azudu's on too, by the way, so that's 8.
Yes.
So who's your 9th guy then? You probably have one more spot, and it's Cunningham, Lemieux, Anderson. And I think Anderson has less position flex, so I think he's going to have a hard time getting on if you already have Bredesen and Schmitz, 2 guys that can play center. So I think Lemieux, who can swing back and forth, and Cunningham, who can swing back and forth, probably become options there.
I would concur with that. Anderson has taken some last-team reps at center a few times in the last couple of weeks, but I don't think he's really in that mix. I agree with you, John. I would probably, and I confess, I've liked Lemieux since he got here and been very, very disappointed that he has been sidetracked by injuries as he has. I've always liked the guy, so I'm a little prejudiced, I guess, a little partial toward him. So I would give him the edge, but again, I may be a bit jaded. I'm just anxious to see him give them something because this guy's had a lot of bad luck.
Let's go to Marty and Manahawk, and he's up next. Hi, Marty. Marty, what's up?
Hey, It's been very quiet with those other two fellas, the tight ends. I know you like to watch them. The Myrick and Sweeney. I haven't heard or seen much from them. Can you give a little update on them?
Absolutely, and the tight end position is actually, I think, interesting. Bob Pop and I were talking about this at dinner last night. And if you keep 6 or maybe even 7 wide receivers because it's such a deep position, right? Can you keep 4 tight ends? But my argument is that I think you almost have to, because while they're all listed as tight ends, they're different type of players, right? You have Waller and Cager. They're kind of more your receiving tight ends. Bellinger's your blocker. Well, can you really go into the season with a 53-man roster and not have a backup tight end that you can really trust to block at the point of attack? Cager can't do that. He's not big enough. And Waller, you don't want to do that because then you want him catching the football. So for me, I think that last blocking spot, to your point on your question, Marty, comes down to Tommy Sweeney or Chris Myrick. And Ryan Jones is there, too, as a guy that's been running with the third team for most of camp. I would think that's Sweeney, given his past with Dable and Shane, and they purposely brought him over this year. I think he might have the leg up, but Myrick's been here a while. So I think those two guys are battling not just to be that fourth tight end and backup blocking tight end, but are you that fourth tight end, blocking tight end on the 53? Or are you that fourth tight end on the practice squad that can get called up if needed on game day? And I think those guys have to prove over the next few weeks that, yes, not only are we good enough to be the second best blocking tight end on the roster, are we good enough to expend the roster spot on, which I think will be interesting.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's a very, very tight battle. There's another option here, though, John. I would like to throw this one out. You could also go with 3 tight ends and use Parrott as your fourth tight end if you wanted to. He has played as the extra tight end on occasion.
And Corey Cunningham did that for him last year.
Yes, correct. And Parrott has tremendous athleticism. We know he was a big basketball player before he got into football. He's got quick legs, quick feet. We did see him play some of that extra tight end role. I would say on your active 53, it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you could wind up with Cager as the third tight end, and then Parrott, who's going to be up as an active offensive lineman anyway, could wind up being your pseudo second-string blocking tight end. And this way you would only have to keep 3 and you could save a roster spot. That would be an option that I would personally favor.
Well, he could be the backup, but if Bellinger gets hurt in the game, you're screwed.
Well, if Bellinger gets hurt in the game, basically you're telling Matt Parrott that when you get in there, you're going to do some blocking, but don't expect to do anything else. And you're not going to probably use that very often.
So in other words, if Bellinger gets hurt in a game, you're screwed. I get back to my original point.
You have to limit your package.
Yes, correct. Which you don't want. You want to build your roster so that you don't have to do that.
You'd rather not.
Correct.
But if you need to steal another roster spot for the receivers, you might do it.
No, you're right.
Because then after the game, if you have to, then you go make the switch.
Right.
And then you're okay.
Yeah, well, it all depends, too, who's going to make the roster, like you guys have been saying, or, at the beginning of the show. It's who's going to get the reps and who's going to come out on top with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Marty. Thanks for the call, man. The 2023 NFL schedule is out. You can go check it out on Giants.com. And that means single-game tickets are on sale now. Don't miss the Giants at MetLife Stadium this season. Visit Giants.com/tickets to secure your seat today. I do know a couple games are already sold out, and there are no tickets left available. I know the Jets, I think, are one of those games. So make sure you get it. If you want to go to games, folks, make sure you go and get them before they run out. And Giant fans, don't forget, Giants TV is the official connected TV streaming app of the Giants. It brings original video content, our game highlights on demand, direct to Big Blue fans, including this very program. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. All right, 201-939-4513. Len is in Columbia, Maryland. Hello, Len.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
Good. Thanks for the coverage, guys. It's really, really been good.
Happy to do it.
We didn't see you at practice. You didn't make the trip to Detroit, Len. Come on. You getting lazy on us?
Here you go. John, on your recitation of the possibilities on the offensive line, I think you left one name out.
Who'd I miss?
And I'd be shocked if he wasn't on the roster, and that's McKeithen.
I think McKeithen's a practice squatter, Len.
He hasn't had enough opportunity to earn a spot, Len.
Oh, wow, you're running a risk if you subject him to that. You're running a risk.
Yeah, no, look, I think
fifth round pick.
I hear you, but remember, he's coming off an ACL.
Okay.
I don't know how much he's gonna. Okay, I'll put it this way. I think you make a good point. If he plays in a couple preseason games and plays really well, and other teams see that, maybe your calculation changes. But I have not seen enough yet. Is that fair?
That is fair for your point of view. I'll bet you a nickel McKeithen's on that 9-man list.
Well, we'll see. He could be.
Okay.
And you're right. Len, you're right. I should have mentioned him being in the mix because he is. That's my fault.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, you don't have to take blame for it. It's okay. That's good. But it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think it's going to be McKeithen. Also on the offensive line, I'm going to watch that left tackle position. I want somebody to come forward and show us that they can play a few downs in a regular season game without hurting us, maybe even have to play a game. God forbid Andrew gets injured, but I'm anxious to see who that guy is, and I'm not sure that it has jumped out at us yet. So I'm going to be watching Phillips, and maybe Pert gets over there for a few plays. He's certainly the backup at right tackle. Maybe the measurement of the caliber of the roster on paper, offensive line-wise, it is really going to be evaluated based on who's not on that final 9, John and Paul, rather than who is on it.
You know what's going to be tough, Len? This is going to be hard for you because, for example, they're going to play the Lions tomorrow.
Right.
The Lions don't have a very formidable front overall.
Okay.
They have Hutchinson, but he's not going to play. And there's not going to be a real test there.
Yeah, good point.
So you're not going to learn a lot.
I know.
Unless
somebody totally collapses.
Unless they
does
do
terrible.
poorly, and then you're like,
Right.
oh, well, they can't hold up against the Lions' backups, then you have real issues.
So the only thing you could possibly gain, I think, in these 3 preseason games is, there's a disaster there. That you may be able to identify.
Yeah.
I don't know you're gonna be comfortable.
Okay.
I think you're setting a floor, but you don't know what the ceiling is.
All right.
So that
even
question's going to linger.
All right. Even if it plays out over the 3 preseason games, I trust that the coaches are going to have somebody who can do what I'm looking for. That is, step in just in case Andrew has a problem, a nick that keeps him out a quarter or something like that, or even can play a game without the other team really taking advantage of it. But let me move to the defensive line real quick. 3-4 base defense. Give me the 3 hand in the ground linemen. Who starts? So obviously it's Lawrence and Williams, but who's the third guy? Who's the barring injury? Who's that third guy up front who starts for us?
Well, before I answer that, Len, I'm going to preface it, and I don't know if you'll cringe or laugh. I mean, we might see over the course of a regular 80-snap game for the defense in a regular season game, 3 defensive linemen and 4 linebackers on the field, maybe a half dozen plays, maybe 10 plays. I mean, I don't think you're going to see it that much, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
But for your hypothetical, and depending on the team, you might see it more if you're facing a heavy run team or something like that runs a lot of heavy formation. So, for the sake of your question, I would say it's going to be Nacho, Dexter, Leonard. That would be my guess, but I think if A'Shawn Robinson comes on the next couple weeks, I think A'Shawn Robinson could be there instead of Nacho.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, Len, we're talking about it's a kaleidoscope defense. They're going to match up. So what you're asking for is something that you're just not going to see on a heavy basis.
Yes. Okay. Let me take what you said and ask the question maybe in a different form.
Sure.
If he's healthy, don't you see Robinson getting a majority of the plays of that hand in the ground defensive end position opposite Leonard? I mean, what are we paying him the money that we're paying for if we're not talking about him in those terms?
I mean, him and Nacho's contracts are not that much different.
Yeah, I'm not sure I know where you're going.
I'd have to take your word for it on that, John. But I think there is some difference between the two.
Honestly, I have to look it up. Just off the top of my head,
I can't remember either.
No, that's fine though. I thought at the time, A'Shawn was around $4 million. I thought Nacho was around $3 million. So I didn't think there was that much difference there.
I mean, look at Len. Understand one thing, okay? when the Giants decided to beef up their depth chart at the defensive line position this offseason, the primary purpose of signing these two veterans, was to take some snaps away from the two overworked guys, Williams and Lawrence, and let them enhance their efficiency. The primary purpose was not necessarily to add linemen on the line.
Yeah, Len, I think A'Shawn will probably get at least half of his snaps as a backup to Dexter. When Dexter's not in the game, A'Shawn's going to go to nose. So I think A'Shawn will get more snaps than Nacho because of his primary role that way.
Okay, especially short yardage. They might throw him addition and short yardage.
Absolutely. He's massive.
Right. Add to the beef in short yardage or goal line.
All right, good. I can accept that because let me go back to the money again. And again, I'm talking off the top of my head, and I guess maybe you are too, John, because we don't remember the numbers. But I can't imagine paying A'Shawn that kind of money if he's not going to get on the field. Again, barring injury.
Oh, no, Len, trust me. A'Shawn Robinson's going to play. Don't worry about it. He's going to play.
All right. Let me now. Fifth defensive linemen. You think we go with 4 like we did last year, or we go with 5?
John.
I understand. I'm beginning to hear snippets about the 7th round draft choice, the kid from Oregon. Well, maybe it's Oregon State. Riley? Is it Riley? Who's the late round nose tackle?
Riley.
Jordan Riley.
95.
Yeah. Has he? From what I'm reading, snippets and things like that. Has he picked up his game a bit?
I mean,
he made one really nice run stop on day 1 out here in Detroit. Look, they like him just because of his traits. He's big, he's strong. But, I mean, look, I think let me put it this way, Len. I think games for a player like that are much more important than practices. So I think those games for Jordan Riley are going to be very important.
I think keep in mind that P word. He's a project.
All right. But if Davison was healthy, Davison wouldn't be a project anymore. He'd probably be on this team, Paulie.
Well, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Right?
Unfortunately, I get it. Hey, you got time for a safety, or we want to talk about that another?
Real quick.
All right. Nice review yesterday of McCain, John. I heard you talking to Lance. I saw McCain play down here for, a few years with the Redskins, and I agree with everything you said about him. I don't know where he is. John, 5'9". He's stopgap at best. I keep thinking, geez, 4th safety. I know versatility is important. The 6th round draft. He was also 7th round. The kid from Houston, Owens.
Yeah.
Owens. Shown anything?
I think given all the depth they have at safety, I think that's going to be a tough time for him making the 5th.
He has not shown out or stood out in any way for me. And my thought on McCain is he was an insurance policy more than anything else. In case Belton didn't rebound, in case Pinnock didn't develop, in case one of the slot guys didn't show anything.
I got it.
I mean, he was insurance to me. He was veteran insurance.
And, Len, by the way, I have the salary numbers up. And,
Tell me.
Nunez-Roches actually has a slightly higher cap number than A'Shawn does this year. A'Shawn, a big part of his contract is per-game roster bonuses. But even with those included, they're only a couple $100,000 apart. So those guys are being paid almost identical.
Very close.
Okay. But if good enough. Thanks for looking that up, John. Hey, thanks for keeping me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. And by the way, those numbers are just courtesy of Over the Cap. We obviously don't give out the official numbers, but that's what's on. That's what's on the old internet. So,
it's funny, John. During the offseason when we talked about the different things that the Giants had to fortify, if you will, or reinforce, after the 11 free agents they signed and the draft class they brought in, it looks like they've got some potential answers to all those spots. I think the thing that Len's worried about, and I appreciate his concern, okay, but at least there are bodies there that might provide answers.
Yeah.
There are other years, you and I have sat on this program and said, that's a hole.
Like third quarterback last year?
That's a hole.
Might have been second quarterback.
I mean, so, let's just take this into perspective and say they're in a much better position with any of these questions than they used to be.
No question about it. Run or walk with Giants legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Sunday, October 8th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. After the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at Giants.com/5K. And Giant fans, don't forget, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. Charlie, I feel like this is like call number 4 for you this week. No? Or am I wrong about that?
No, you're wrong. I haven't been calling, actually.
Okay, well, you called yesterday, didn't you? Or was that 2 days ago you called?
No, it wasn't yesterday. It was
maybe that was last
Lance
week.
Was on. Yeah.
You don't call Lance.
Hey.
I don't blame you.
All right, so why don't you just spoil our program, Charlie? What kind of misery do you have?
Hey, no, just a great segue, John. A legend and a DJ. So here I am. So there you go. That was a great segue. Thank you. Look, I remember, Kafka said something real important, which I think we have to do. He said we got to learn how to start quicker in the game.
Good point.
We weren't very good at that, right? And the same thing happened. We didn't start very quick at the first practice. So I don't think we've addressed that yet. But I just want to say this about Daniel Jones, right?
Something positive, I'm sure.
I look at him as inconsistent. One day he's bad. The next day he's okay, or maybe Paul would say he was really good. And that's the problem. He's inconsistent. He has to be consistent to be an elite quarterback.
I think that's fair. I think last year you had some games where he was very good, some games where he wasn't as very good, and I think it is important for him to smooth that out a little bit. I don't think that's unfair. I wouldn't necessarily reflect that on 2 individual practices in the middle of August, but I think if you look back at next year as a whole, I think Daniel Jones will say, yeah, I had some really good games against some teams. Look at a couple of the Viking games, the Colt game, end of the year. And then other games, maybe against Dallas and Philly, he wasn't quite as good. So, yes, I think some of that has to do with strength of opponent, to be quite honest with you. You're just not going to be good against better defenses, and you're going to be better against bad defenses like the Vikings. But, look, I think Daniel would say from game to game you would want to see a more consistent performance. I don't think that's out of line. And based on the look on Dottino's face, I think he's willing to maybe cede that point a little bit.
I'm not so sure. I mean, I'll give you 2 numbers. And I don't keep all of the numbers for every quarterback in the league. But when I do my film study and my breakdown for my charts, I had Daniel Jones last year, the Giants, with 40 drops. And I'm very tough on drops. You know that. I'm very tough on drops. I had them for 40 drops. 18 of the 40 were drops beyond the first down marker that would have kept drives alive. That's a nasty number. That is a nasty number. Okay.
Paul, were those drops by the defensive cornerbacks?
No, Charlie, they were not. They were not. Now,
okay,
I can't compare and contrast that to what other quarterbacks had to deal with during the course of the season. But I know, just as an individual QB, 40 drops is a lot of drops because you figure the guy played 16 games. Yeah. So that's more than 2 a game. And with 18 drops beyond the sticks, think about that, Charlie. That's 18 first downs. Think about how many drives that could have saved. So
that's what happened to Eli.
Okay, well, you're absolutely right. I used to keep the same stats for Eli, and he had very similar numbers during his last couple of years here. So please understand, all right, when you take some of your shots at Daniel, some of those shots are kind of misdirected a little bit. There's
sometimes he took a shot at Daniel on this call, though.
Sometimes he does.
Oh, no, but not today.
Not particularly today. Not particularly today.
I'm just getting warmed up, Paul. I don't go there, but I won't.
But do understand there are other factors that deserve some of your venom. That's all I'm trying to say.
I was just asking you about the consistency game-to-game factor.
Well, and I think some of the inconsistencies that we see have to be recognized as other factors, not necessarily his.
Fair enough.
Hey, I wanted who ended up playing right tackle most of the snaps instead of Neal because he's out. Who was it? Pert or was it
Pert?
Who?
Pert. Yep.
It was Pert.
Pert.
Who's number 70?
Cunningham.
Oh yeah. Well, I just saw a clip of number 70, and Hutchinson went right by him, and I didn't know who that was.
Yeah,
so,
he got his revenge because Cunningham ate him up in the first rep of the one-on-ones on Tuesday, and I am sure Hutchinson got abused in the film room after that. And so next time he went against Cunningham, it was a different story.
So you thought Pert did okay?
Yeah, honestly, Charlie, I've been very happy with the way Pert's done.
In fact, even since the end of last week when he had to come in for Neal, he's done well.
Yeah, so maybe there might be a competition. Maybe Neal won't be our right tackle. Question? Maybe?
I think that's a step too far.
Yeah, I would not go there. I would not go there.
Not for week one, Charlie. Look. Now, here's the thing.
I know.
If Pert keeps playing really well, and the first couple weeks, if, I don't think this will be the case, but if Neal's really poor, then maybe you can have that type of conversation. But I don't think we're there at this point, and I don't think we're going to get there.
And just so people understand.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Just to make sure people understand, when a guy's in concussion protocol, if he is experiencing heavy symptoms, they won't let him out in sunlight. They won't have him walking around doing things with the trainers. Usually they're doing as little as possible because that's a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen Evan Neal walking around with the trainers.
Oh, yeah, he's
doing a few little individual drills. He's not wearing sunglasses. He looks like he's having a normal day.
I would imagine by the time they practice on Monday, he'll be back out there. You never know with concussions,
unfair,
but
we don't want to take a guess, but the point is he's clearly not looking like he is in the early serious stages of a bad situation. Correct. It does not appear that way.
Correct. All right, final call of the show is Tom in Stratford, Connecticut. Tom, what's going on?
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I know we're up against it, so I'll talk quickly. If I don't understand why Neal even traveled out. If he wasn't playing or participating in anything and he's in concussion protocol, he could have done those exercises back in, at home. But
look, they were doing team meetings, they were doing rehab, and all the trainers were out here, so it made sense to have him as part of the team.
Well, but actually, I'm glad you brought that up because if his concussion was really serious, they wouldn't let him on a plane.
That is correct.
So actually, that shows you how I don't want to use the word minor. That's not a proper term to use, but it shows you that he is not in a very serious way
and not far away.
Right.
Right. And really, one other thing, too, about Danny Jones, I really can't wait to see him this year because he's got weapons galore now. I mean, I'm sick and tired of past years watching wide receivers running wrong routes and dropping passes going through their fingers for interceptions, and then, look bad on him, and it's not his fault. But
well, you know what that's like? That's like telling James Bond to go fight an arch international enemy with a BB gun, right?
Right.
Now he's finally got that .44 revolver with the silencer on it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Bryce Wheaton and McCutcheon are destined for the practice squad. I'm not so sure Lemieux is going to make the team because he always seems to get hurt. I think Wandell is definitely going to start on the PUP. I mean, he just had a major knee operation in December. So I've had 3 of them myself, and that's nothing that you want to screw around with. So let him, especially since what's-his-name seems to be doing really well. Beasley seems to be doing a great job from what I read and hear from you guys.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think there's much of a reason to rush Robinson. I think that's fair.
Exactly.
I concur. I will say, and I did confirm this with Dion Dargan of the PR department. Just a couple of days ago, Joe Shane was on with Zach Gelb of CBS Sports Radio and said he thinks it could be a week or so and Robinson will come off PUP. He's apparently progressing very well, and they see light at the end of the tunnel. That comment was made on the program.
All right, I'll have to watch him.
I heard the clip,
and
then I confirmed it with PR, and that was what was said. So I haven't talked to Joe myself about it.
Also, maybe he's not going to start the year on PUP.
So that's a really, really good question.
I think they should take it slow with him, like I said, because we got a lot of weapons anyways. And is Evan Neal's knee okay? Because I read something in the paper that someone was questioning why he's wearing that brace, and I was thinking maybe that was just for precautionary reasons. And that's one question. The second question I have, and then I'll get off the phone, is Landon Collins in camp with anyone? That
I do not believe so. No, I do not believe he is.
Okay.
And as far as
looking forward
Neal's
to tomorrow
knee,
night's
I
game.
have not heard any issues with his knee at all. I suspect it's precautionary.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, guys. I can't wait for tomorrow's game.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Paul, any final comments? And you'll be on with Lance tomorrow, so you'll have more final comments.
Yeah, no, I mean, just today the Giants did the walkthrough outside, as we talked about, on the beautiful park lawn that's behind the hotel here. And the team seems in very good spirits. They seemed as though they had some productive workouts. And I think maybe it was good to just kind of get away a little bit and maybe see some other jerseys. We'll see how they fare in the game. To this point, correct me if I'm wrong, they did not have any bumps and bruises or significant injuries coming out of these last 2 days.
We didn't talk to Dable after the second practice.
We did not, but I don't remember anything popping up.
No, I did not notice anything.
So that's a positive.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
All right, Paul will be with Lance tomorrow for Big Blue Kickoff Live, and I'll talk to you on the pregame show on Friday night at 6 o'clock. So make sure you tune in on WFAN FM in New York. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We will see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live.